Do you ever feel like you're chasing ghosts when you're searching for an ancestor who changed his name? Well, today I'm going to let you peek over my shoulder, watch me create my research plan in Google Sheets on how to solve these name change problems. Hey there, I'm Lisa Lisson with Are You My Cousin, and I'm a genealogy researcher who has over 15 years of experience helping others find their ancestors. On this YouTube channel, I share my best strategies, tools, and tips to help you uncover your family history. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, you're in the right place. Now, in a previous video, I did share with you the strategies on how to research ancestors who have changed their names. So in this video, I really want to focus on letting you see and watch how I actually create a research plan around an ancestor who had changed their name or whose name basically evolved over time into something different. Now, I have talked about research plans in the past as well, but we need a research plan particularly when we're trying to research these sticky situations of name changes. Now, why? Why do we need that? One, I need to make sure I'm staying focused on my research. I also, importantly, want to make sure I do not duplicate research that I have already done, because I have done this, and I bet you have too, where I've gone in to research an ancestor, gotten distracted, come back the next day, come back a couple weeks later, even a year later, and get back into that research project only to realize that after spending time in the records, I've already looked at those records. I already had evaluated those records, but had forgotten. So that research plan not only gives me a roadmap for the records and the types of research I want to do, but it also helps me ensure that I do not duplicate research that I have already done. So it's keeping me focused and it's keeping me efficient. Okay, now I do create my research plans in Google Sheets, so let me turn my camera around, let me take you over and show you how I create that research plan. Okay, so we are over here. I have opened up a Google Sheets. So if you are not familiar with Google Sheets, I actually have a video on using Google Sheets and creating a research plan, so I will have that link in the description below. But this is really where I keep all of my research plans, and most of my notes I use the Google Sheets. I use Google Docs, Google Drive a lot. So that's kind of where I keep how I organize my things. But that's another video for another day. Don't worry, it's coming. Anywho, so we're over here. I've got my research plan here, and I keep this as a template, and then I can just copy it and reopen it up. And I went ahead and started filling this one in a little bit for you. So I always start up here with my research goal. And in this case, what I need to know, I'm looking at my ancestor whose name is Boss Henry Talbot. Yes, that's his name. He was never the boss of anything that I know of, but that was his name. And also the name Johnny Talbot. And what I need to know and want to know is, are they the same person? Now, I will tell you, this has tripped up many researchers. And I've been able, fortunately, to help them set straight, because I did have some information that isn't through oral history that was very helpful. But this is the question: are they the same person? So I always want to keep that research question right up in my mind, right up at top, so that I don't get distracted. I'm easily distracted when I get in the records because I find an interesting tidbit, but I don't want to get distracted. So I make sure I put that front and center when it comes. Then I just put down some brief information. I'm not trying to rewrite everything that I know about him at this point. And so I know that Boss Henry, he also went by the nickname Bossy, that he married Esther Richardson. They married November 21st, 1915. This was Halifax County, Virginia. Then I know that Bossy was born in December 15th, 1886, and that he died May 27th, 1966. And all of these events actually took place in Halifax County, Virginia. So that is actually helpful to know. You know, fortunately, my guy didn't move around much when it comes to that. Those ancestors who wanted to change their identities and change their name, you know, maybe they're running from the law, or for whatever reason, just want a whole different life, and they leave, you know, the East Coast, go to the West Coast with a new name. Those guys are extremely difficult to research. That is very, very difficult to do. These tend to be more of just a variety of reasons for changing names. And I never knew. I just always had heard about my great-grandfather, Boss Henry Talbot, Boss Henry, Bossy, whatever. And when I started researching, realized, wait a minute, I'm struggling. I can't find him in the early records. I can't find him. He was born in 1886. I can't find him in the family Bible. What's going on? Where is he? And somebody said, oh, well, he didn't like his name, so he changed it. I'm like, wait, what? It changed his name? Sure enough, that was the reason for a name change here. Let me walk you through some of this. Now, again, I also put my notes section here. So if I need to add a note, I might say, strong oral history in the family, right? And that would be what I would hope to have. So any kind of notes that I want to make to myself, I might put there. Maybe if I didn't know there was oral history, maybe I would say something along the lines of, notice that Bossy appears only after 1910. That I can't find him before that, knowing that he should be in some records that way. So I could put any kinds of notes here that I want to put down for that, and I can make that as big or as little as I want. Now, here's where I'm going to sit down and make this plan for him. The first plan that I always start when it comes to name changes is oral history. Now, hear me out, guys. I know this is the part that's really hard because a lot of times we are the oldest generation and we don't have that oral history anymore. If you have the opportunity to talk with, older generations, whether it's, your grandparents, your parents, whether it's aunts, uncles, maybe you may need to go wide on the family tree instead of up the family tree, making sure you're gathering oral histories and stories from everybody that could possibly have. Because remember, it wasn't those stories and information didn't just come down our lot in the family. They could have come down, collateral lines. We want to make sure that we're capturing that if possible. So I want to do that. In my case, when I was doing this particular research project, I was fortunate enough, my grandmother was still living, and I was able to interview her about that. Unfortunately, she has passed on at this point. So if I were just starting out, I wouldn't really have a lot in the way of oral history to pull on because that generation has passed away. There is no one left. But I do know, because it was in the Halifax County area, I would actually seek out distant cousins up there. Some I know, most I don't know at this point, and I would see what I could find out from them. I would actually go that far to find out is that. So what I would do is I would say oral history. Maybe it's I would say if I knew the person's name, I would put somebody's name down. So if I knew, say, Aunt, Elma, if she was still living, I would put that there. Again, I would make notes here. Seek out. I was actually what I would say would be talk to the local genealogy society for finding living cousins in the area. Okay. And that's actually not a difficult thing. I can actually just email them or call, reach out to them on their website and see what would happen. And then I could answer, did I get the answer I needed? Yes. No. If I didn't, okay, the next thing would be to, pursue census records. Or maybe it would be reach out to, I could say, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to reach out to Google Cluster. So maybe he's the next person I would need to reach out to. So again, I'm going to make out any list here that I need to know. I'm not sure why that's hyperlinked. It shouldn't be there. If you do not have that, that is okay. Sometimes we don't have oral history to get. So then what I would probably do at this point would be to, I would make this as oral history. Let's go. Oops. I would say look for locally written histories, family histories. Okay. And I would reach out to the local librarian. Let's do the Halifax County Library. Oops, I misspelled it. Okay, and I would talk to them, ask about locally written family histories, because oftentimes the libraries might have heritage books that have been written locally that are really just, a small published run that are going to be at the library there. So I would reach out for that and ask how to find them. All right. So then, certainly kind of alongside while I'm waiting for some of that to happen, I'm going to be looking at the records. So I'm going to look at census records because I want to track when Boss Henry appears in the records, when Johnny appears in the records. Do they cross over? Is it a seamless, one is there, it's Johnny, 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 and then it turns into Boss Henry, Boss Henry, Boss Henry. So I want to see, is there any conflict within the census record that I actually see two different men? So I'm going to look at census records where I'm going to need some, there we go, make that plot. I'm going to look at, 1890, he was, there weren't any, so I'm going to look at the 1900 here. All right, hang on one second. Here we go. 1900 census record. I'm going to look at the 1910. And I'm going to go to the 1920. I do know by 1920, he was actually full on using the name Bossy. So I know that I don't need to actually look any further than that. So I'm going to focus on those years at that point because I do know that Boss Henry was there at that point. So I'm going to do that. I will also put this in. I'll look for the names. Whoops. Boss Henry and for Johnny. Put on a timeline. All right, so I know to myself, I'm going to create a timeline. I'm going to put these data points on there and see what I could have, if I find anything else. At that point, I'll break down if I need to. If I find it, great. If I can't find anything, well, then maybe the next thing I need to do would be go on to the next records. If I'm struggling with the census records, because those are every 10 years and I need to narrow this down to year by year, I'm going to say next up, look year by year in the tax records. So I'm going to actually go into looking for tax records and to see. And that's the beauty. Tax records are an unusual record collection, but they can document year by year, whereas census records, as we know, are going to be every 10 years. So let's write tax records. And I would look for the years that he would potentially be paying taxes. So he probably wouldn't start paying taxes. I don't remember the exact I can't remember his exact age that he would need to be, if it would be 18 or 21 at this point in time. But I'm going to, come forward. So he's 10 in 1906, 1910, he's 14, 12. So by 1912. So let's start with the 1912s. And tax records and forward those years. That is actually going to be not online. Those are going to be at the Halifax County Courthouse. So that tells me I need to come up with a time to visit the courthouse or have somebody do that research for me. So I'm going to look at that. And then I would make a note to myself, check age limits on taxes. That just tells me I need to check to make sure I'm looking in the right years for him. So I've got census records, I've got tax records. Then I'm also going to seek out newspapers. I want to do newspaper research into these two gentlemen to see again if I can find some data points to put onto my timeline. Where am I seeing them appearing at the same time? Are they crossing? Does it ever mention who the father is for either one of the men? So I'm going to do newspaper research to see what I can find there on that. So I'm going to typically use I would use Ancestry, I would use MyHeritage, MyHeritage, I would use, newspapers.com. I would use, what else would I look at? I would look at newspapers.com, I would look at chronicling, sorry guys, keep coming. Chronicling America. And then I would actually also additionally check, I would check for small local newspapers at the library. Okay. So I would check for them that way. Again, that local library can be very helpful because they know those local resources. Sometimes they'll have those smaller run things about that we can at that point check. So this would be how I would go about my research. And each time I would do it, I might make a note as to what I found, what I didn't find. Did it answer my question? Yes. Then I can stop. If it didn't answer my question, what is my next step? Tax records. I'm going to be looking at tax records and newspapers kind of simultaneously. Tax records are going to require an actual research trip for me. So I would put that on the calendar. I would actually schedule onto the calendar for, say, September 1st. So I'm going to go ahead and put a specific date on the calendar, on the schedule, and on my calendar to make sure that that happens. So I would assess when can I go, what can I do, or perhaps I might think, okay, I'm not going to be able to go, so I need to, I'm going to hire someone to research these. All right, so that would be where I would do there. Now, I can't do all of this at one time. We know that. So I'm going to get stopped. So probably what I'm going to do when I get to this point is maybe I've done my oral history, my locally written family histories that I've looked for. I've looked at my census records, and I've got to get on with life. I've got other things to do. So I'm going to say the next thing I need to do is start with the tax records. Before I leave my research section, I highlight that. I go up to this little bucket here, and then I'm going to highlight that orange. And that tells me that that's my starting point next time. So wherever I am in the process, I highlighted the box orange. So I know that that's where I need to start the next time. That way I don't spend time coming into it and going, okay, did I finish that census research? Did I do the 1920s? Let me go back and look at it. Oh yes, I already did it. So I know exactly where I need to start. So this is how I'm going to create that research plan, and then I'm going to start moving through my research plan, adding my notes, adding new records that come up that I might be able to check. Maybe I learn about people that I need to talk with, and I can add those here as well. Okay, so I hope you have found that helpful in seeing how I create those research plans. Now, if you missed the video on the strategies for researching those ancestors who've had name changes, be sure and watch the video on your screen now because I've got it all ready for you.